presentation. He says, "Isn't it remarkable how far the association has progressed under Ben's leadership?" And I can't, I think it's remarkable, really. Good job. And with the good support of Joy and others, we have a first-class association. It's only getting better. They're very creative on how to handle your business efficiently and such. So we're lucky to have them on board. Ben also asked me to comment briefly upon the elephant in the room. As you all know, the elephant in the room is cyber security. And if you listen to 60 Minutes last Sunday, you'd hear CIA Director Brennan, after quite a dialogue or an interview on ISIS and ISIL, to say the thing that really keeps them awake at night is cybersecurity. And the industry itself, our insurance industry, has been the target of cybersecurity, and there's been a tremendous focus upon it, beginning a year ago with the breach of Anthem, followed by the breach of Primera, and followed thereafter by the breach of CareFirst. Thus, the insurance industry has been squarely targeted for cyber attacks. And what must we do to deal with this? Well, back up one, I wanted to read that table of contents, if you would. We have the challenge, and that is why be concerned about cybersecurity. We have the cost of data breach. It's more expensive than you think. We have the insurance industry under cyber attack, as I've indicated. We have a hidden regulatory organization, hidden in the sense of the rating organizations. BEST now is using 14 criteria to judge cybersecurity, and it can affect your ratings if you're a best rated company. We also have sources of regulation, which I'll go over here, there, and everywhere. Data security in the law, when the victim becomes the defendant. It's kind of an odd mix. What's a broker or an insurer to do? We're going to give you some concrete steps, and the process for preparing a written information security plan and a data breach response plan. We are also going to talk briefly about the opportunity that you in this room have to be selling cybersecurity products and the status of that today. And then we're going to conclude with the top 10 questions that every broker should ask themselves about cyber. So let's flip it on. As Ben Nelson has said, the largest focus today in the insurance industry is on cybersecurity. How can it affect you? Well, it can affect you obviously in many ways. One, the expenses to respond to a cyber breach. Two, the damage to your reputation if you have been breached. How many clients are going to come back to you if you've had a massive breach and their personally identifiable information has been lost? Three, disruption to management in trying to respond to a cyber attack. Also, regulatory and law enforcement investigations, shareholder derivative suits, consumer class actions, collateral damage to other companies, for example, vendors and things, if some of this information has been taken away. Declines in ratings, as I've indicated. Possible drop in your stock price if you're publicly traded. And also, it can even result in job loss, as was the case in connection with Sony and the loss of jobs in that particular instance. So, the cost of a data breach, on average, it's supposed to be $6.5 million, which is significant. But a large data breach, it transcends that by many-fold. Let's take a look at what happened in Anthem. Anthem was breached about a year ago, as I'd indicated. 80 million people had their personally identifiable information taken. Within about 6 weeks, 90 lawsuits were filed against Anthem. The general counsel of Anthem at the Chicago NEIC meeting was asked by a panel of insurance regulators, how much did this cost the company? He says, I like to put it in two buckets. In one bucket, it's the efforts we took in order to not allow this to occur again. We will have spent last year $65 million and another $63 million this year. It's $128 million just for that. In addition to that, just responding to the breach itself, the lawsuits, consumer notifications, dealing with investigations and the like, that ran up another $230 million. That's nearly $360 million for that particular breach. Then somebody had the foresight to ask the question, well, how much of this information has shown up on the dark web? He says, we've been working with the FBI for 6 months, and we've found 0 instances of that information showing up on the dark web. That's a heck of a lot of penalty to pay for not having anything show up on the web. This is a graphic of what Anthem was confronted with. Incidentally, these slides will be made available on the SLA website. I know some of them are a little bit difficult to read, but we have the NEIC taking a leadership role in many respects, forging a consumer bill of rights and 12 principles, which we'll discuss briefly. Also trying to come out with some consumer protection. We have ERM and ORSA being affected as tripwires now, where regulators will be taking a look at that. We have the New York Department of Financial Services sending letters to 160 executives on how they're addressing these issues. They're likely to come out with regulations. We have federal law enforcement, federal laws, federal agencies involved in the Anthem breach. We have so-called Trojan horses, which can include vendors and brokers, insurance brokers and producers, through which information is passed and through which a hacker can gain access to a target company. We have state breach laws. We have changes in stock market prices and job losses indicated. All of these confronted Anthem. I mentioned the rating agency, and BEST now has 14 questions that they do ask in connection with cyber. Additionally, Lloyd's is looking to the future and saying, gee, you know, this could be a bigger problem than we anticipated. Folks might say they could be exposed to some loss in cyber, but what if they're also underwriting D&O insurance and there's a breach of that particular company and that company suffers losses? Does that compound the aggregate potential losses that could be involved? So they've asked for a data call amassing information to try to aggregate the exposure to particular companies. I know that the NEIC is also interested in that. I'm confident that John and his colleagues at the insurance department are also interested in the aggregate exposure. The NEIC has come out with 12 principles regarding cyber insurance. No, we're not going to sit here and read them. The takeaway, though, is the following. Out of the 12, 11 of them specifically mention producers. And let's take a look at number 9. It's on 2 slides later. Cybersecurity risks should be incorporated and addressed as part of the insurer or insurance producer's enterprise risk management process. Cybersecurity transcends the information technology department and must include all facets of an organization. I think that encapsulates much of what's going on. And why are we doing this? Why are we so focused? Well, one, you'd like to prevent a breach, but let's keep in mind, everyone is vulnerable to a breach, even if you take enormous steps. But the next step is we want to make sure you're protected if you're sued. What steps have you taken? Have you taken reasonable steps in order to prevent the breach? If that is the fact, it's likely that that will significantly mitigate damages, and paying attention to things like this will help in that regard. Here are a couple of other sources of regulation for cybersecurity. The Federal Insurance Office annual report has information about it. The NEIC roadmap on cybersecurity consumer protections. The New York Department of Insurance letter to the CEOs. The European Union has come out with regulations regarding personal data. And U.S. Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act was recently passed for 2015, allowing you to share information with law enforcement and others without being exposed to liability. Reasonableness is the standard in determining whether or not you've actually taken action Have you taken reasonable steps to prevent a breach? Those who do nothing are challenging the fates. Seriously, if you do nothing and you're hacked and there's personally identifiable information that is released, you're going to suffer severe consequences. You must do something. The FTC has recently come out with some information saying that it is unreasonable for not securing data obtained from unauthorized third parties, not providing consumers with notice about what the company is doing with their personal data, and thirdly, not notifying everybody when their data is breached. So that is virtually per se unreasonable, and a plaintiff's attorney will grab that and run with it if you haven't done at least that amount. What's a broker to do? Well, here are 7 points that you should take into consideration. Understand your risks. Do you have personally identifiable information? How is it being protected? Stay informed. This is a moving target. Oftentimes you need to talk to regulators, the association, or others, law enforcement, for example. Address your defenses. Create 2 documents, a written information security plan that lays out a roadmap of what you're doing. That'll be your Exhibit A in a trial to show that you've taken this seriously. And 2, if you are hacked, have a data breach response plan. Put one together. Who are you supposed to call? What are you supposed to do? Who are you supposed to notify? Those types of things. Importantly, take responsibility. This has to go up to the board level. This isn't just a staff issue. Know your partners, your vendors and the like, and what their exposure is and what efforts they've taken. Get insured. There is insurance out there that you can purchase to help you. I had mentioned the written information security plan, the data breach response plan. Again, it's a 2 written documents. They can even be incorporated. What you're doing to protect the data, and 2, what you're to do in the event of a breach. Now there is an opportunity. So we've got all of this occurring, which is the challenge, but there is an opportunity. And we have a number of insurers now offering standalone cyber cover, and it's generally in the 1 to 200 million range. And you can sell your clients this type of insurance. In fact, Best recently put together, I think it was last week, they came out with a guide to cyber insurance. In fact, we participated and helped them with creation of this. And it shows that they say 60 insurers now offering standalone coverage. Last year it amounted to about $2 billion. By 2018, they say it'll be $5 billion. By 2020, it'll be $7.5 billion. They claim the maximum limit is $300 million. And then it gives a little bit of a historical development together with first and third party coverages. I have a copy of that in the back of the room for anybody who's interested, together with a synopsis of this presentation and also an excerpt on cyber that comes from our annual so-called year in review, which was published today. And it gives you a legal analysis of what the latest is on cyber. Let's move on. These are the 10 questions you should be confronted with. Have you designated a party responsible to manage cybersecurity? What training in data security is provided to your employees? Does your company purchase cybersecurity insurance? Do you have a written information security plan, a data breach response plan? How is data safeguarded, and what are the best practices regarding data security? What practices are in place to ensure compliance? What internal and external controls and policies and procedures are in place to manage a data breach? Are cybersecurity risks addressed as part of the company's enterprise risk management process? Has the company considered the rating implications of cybersecurity? And finally, if the company offers cybersecurity products, has the risk been aggregated? So that's a bit of an overview of cybersecurity. There's a lot to be said on this. We wanted to touch on these points. It's very important to protect your business interests and, most importantly, your customers and their personally identifiable information. Thank you.